Well, the must-see strategists are back in their Monday quarterback seats to survey the pre-launch campaign landscape and more. Let's get to our top quality quads. Carl Belanger is president of Douglas Cobalt Foundation, a left-wing think tank. I guess that's the way to describe it, eh, Carl? All right, Kate Harrison with Summa Strategies. And then there are the gregarious Gregs. That would be McEachern with Proof Strategies and Weston with the Earnscliffe Strategy Group. Welcome. Welcome. Eh?
That was good.
That's a mouthful and a half. Okay, the NDP started their campaign Sunday. The Conservatives have said they're going to start their campaign Wednesday. What's the science behind everyone waiting for this great rip to drop, even when we know the voting date is October 21st. Carl?
Well, it's basically because we know when the voting day is that the campaign has started. That's a problem with the fixed election date. I mean, is it a problem? I don't know. Some people can debate it. But that's the reality, is that the campaign has started. It doesn't really matter when technically the writ dropped, except for one thing: finance, money. Because people can spend as much as they want before the campaign. There's no, if you're the Conservative Party, for instance, with all these millions, you can spend all of that. During the campaign, there's a ceiling. Can't spend as much. For the smaller parties, it means that if you spend money now, you do not get a reimbursement from Elections Canada as an election expense for the share that is eligible.
Right.
So for the Liberals, the shorter the period it is bad for the NDP, it is bad for the other parties because they cannot spend as much and recuperate some of that money at the end. But in terms of political sense, it doesn't really matter. The campaign is on.
Does it not really matter, Kate, whether the Conservatives fire up their buses and planes on Wednesday or wait till Sunday for the drop at the last possible minute?
Yeah, I think the campaign started in earnest some time ago.
August, right?
For sure. And to Carl's point, we see this in the United States as well, where there's a fixed election date and the campaign begins, well, in the U.S., it's about 2 years prior to actual voting day. So hopefully we'll never hit anything like that here in Canada, because that's exhausting even for us. But it does matter mainly on the financial side. Also at the local level, most campaigns prepare for a 36-day writ period. If it's longer, that's potentially thousands of dollars more that they'd be able to spend. And obviously, if it's shorter, less money they'd be able to spend. Or for smaller parties, maybe that's an advantage. So it's all about the bottom line.
So do you hold back if you're the Liberals because you've got this fire hose of funding announcements that you've been spewing across the country? Why not keep it going?
Well, yeah, I've seen two different things on that, whether or not the Liberals, it's better for them to wait for the reasons that Carl gave, or the other thing with a lot of those funding announcements, if it wasn't pre-election, people would be accusing of them of re-announcements, because some of them have been their budget money that's been said before. So I don't know if you're looking for speculation, because I would never gossip, Don. There was some talk this weekend that the NDP were going to launch on Sunday regardless, but because of the hurricane in Atlantic Canada, they had to scale down one. Some suggestion as well that the Liberals were ready to go and thinking about going on the weekend, but wanted to wait to see what happened. And just saying hello to everybody in Nova Scotia that's cleaning up. So I think what you may see this week is a gauge of how things are going in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, PEI in terms of the cleanup, and then the Liberals may make their decision. I mean, we know it has to be by Sunday.
Well, Greg, you've seen enough of these things to know when a writ drops really doesn't matter, especially with a fixed election date, but there must be a strategy behind it that makes sense to you.
I think this is all communications. The NDP wanted to get out there today, early last weekend, so that they could have the whole stage to themselves. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. And the hurricanes, and their reason that they've given is the hurricanes in Atlantic Canada. They didn't think that was appropriate, so they've delayed. I think the Conservatives exactly the same thing. It's get out there, have your own day.
On 9/11, by the way, that's kind of odd.
Well, we don't know. I can't believe they're going to do it on 9/11.
Well, they're doing it Wednesday. They've confirmed that. And last I looked at the calendar, Wednesday's 9/11.
Yeah, well, all I can say is here we go. Seriously, whoever came out would have loved to be in the room. Yeah, let's do it on 9/11. That'll be fun. No, seriously.
I don't know a single person that's going to cast their ballot based on what day they do or don't launch the campaign.
But
right?
a day of bad publicity is a day you're not getting out your own message.
Yeah, you lose a narrative.
So I think that's the challenge. I'm with Weston on this. It's a head scratcher.
Should they go on 9/11? Is it faded memory or something, or go on the 12th?
I'm not sure that it really matters. And what if the Liberals go on the 12th, right? Like, any opposition party is always going to be overshadowed by the launch of the Prime Minister's campaign.
Go Friday the 13th. That would be a good one.
Yeah, well, and they can't go tomorrow because of the Manitoba election. So you're rolling the dice no matter what.
All right. I want to ask, because not all the parties have full slates. In fact, we have a graphic we'll roll here that shows the state of nominations to date. There are 338 total. The Conservatives have locked them all in. Ironically, second is the People's Party of Canada. The Liberals have still got a ways to go, 41 seats to go, and the NDP is still, a long way behind. What's the message if you're rolling out the buses and planes, Carl, and you don't have a full slate or even any prospect of having a full slate?
I think people are making too much out of this because the reality is that the NDP is going to have a full slate of candidates. It's going to happen. They've always done so. But in terms of narrative, the problem is that we're talking about this, and it's also a problem at the local level because these candidates cannot be out there. So whatever reasons they're giving, vetting, searching for different equity groups, I think it's all valid. But the problem is that they are starting with, a few weeks behind their opponents from the other parties, as we just saw.
Okay. I mean, your party's got the full slate, so...
Yeah, they're
go
ready
ahead,
to go. I think if you don't have a full slate of candidates at this point, to Carl's point, what it does is kind of hurt you at the local level. The Liberals are going to have to appoint a lot of candidates now, as will the NDP. That can hurt the riding association groups that want to see, someone from locally not be anointed the candidate, but actually go through a process and a race. So it's a bit of a balance, right? You have to make sure that, you're satisfying your local constituency and also making sure these nominations happen on time. But I'm not surprised the Conservatives are the most organized.
Of course, lest we forget, the NDP grabbed a bartender out of a university pub, and she went to Vegas.
An excellent MP.
And she's been one of the best MPs for them. Through that Brazeau. All right. Why isn't your party, the government party, got a full slate ready to go? You think they'd be lined up to run for your guy?
There are some surprises you're going to see in vote-rich Alberta for the Liberals. We're waiting to
one of the bartenders, are you? Okay.
I think, the reality is the Liberals are playing to their strengths. The Prime Minister right now, as we speak, is with a candidate called named Chris Rogers, who's running against Pierre Poilievre. Obviously, the Prime Minister's done a lot of events with Rogers. They think they have a chance there. I would wager a guess that the seats that aren't named are ones that either they're waiting for a splashy nomination where they want the Prime Minister to be there, or it's one where, like Carl said, we're going to have somebody in every seat, and sometimes it's going to be a lovely learning experience for a young Liberal.
Someone at the PMO told me there's going to be a lot of people with relatives' names compared to PMO staffers running. Greg, am we making something about nothing, or does not having a full slate at the launch matter?
I think the one thing we've got to acknowledge, Don, is that we're coming up very close to this being the shortest possible time for an election, which a lot of Canadians, by the way, will like. But, in a 36-day campaign, having, when you're going to use up, the first week even of nominating candidates, that's a big part of your door-knocking time, your organizational time. So absolutely at the local level, this matters. The fact that the NDP had not been able to nominate more than 200 and whatever that figure was, and they still have 130 to go, says something about the NDP. And I think those numbers in particular say more about the NDP and about anybody else. They're in trouble. Face it, they're in trouble. They're way down in the polls. And when you're way down in the polls, it's hard to attract good candidates.
Right. All right. Well, People's Party of Canada can't get much lower in the polls, and they seem to have got pretty much.
How about the Green Party as well, right? Like
let's wait to see who the People's Party have nominated before we talk a little bit. We talk about
that's called an open casting call.
Abortion. I didn't think in 2019 we'd still be talking about abortion on the campaign trail, but our friends at CBC got Elizabeth May to basically say she wouldn't whip MPs, Green Party MPs, to vote anyway on abortion. They can bring forward bills. I should stress that it is Green Party policy not to whip MP votes on any issue. But I still wonder if this is something that should concern Elizabeth May, or should Greg Weston, I'll go to you on that. Why is this still a topic in these campaigns when all the leaders say they have no intention, if they form a government, of making this change in abortion law or lack of an abortion law?
The easiest answer to that, Don, is because the media makes it one every time there's an election campaign. And we've watched this over the years of covering these campaigns. For conservative leaders in particular, there's always a time during the campaign when some candidate has come out and said something about abortion, and it instantly moves over to the leader's tour, and the leader is in the situation of saying, no, I wouldn't support anybody who wants to. And then the question is, well, what about private members' bills? What if a private member wants to do something? Would you support that? And it's such a hot button subject still. And the interesting thing about Elizabeth May saying, oh, well, they can kind of vote however they want. Polls have shown, and there's some really good research on this, that it's not the issue so much. Canadians just don't want the debate. They don't want to reopen it. There's certain ones, capital punishment, abortion, they just don't want the debate. So I don't think that this is going to be a great vote grabber for her.
But the Liberals would like to have that debate.
Yeah, but I think before that, there's a context that we're forgetting, which is the United States last year during midterms. This became a big issue again. And we also have other issues that are kind of coming up for the United States around populism and things like this. So I think this is why I think in 2019, it's a bigger issue than, say, it was in 2008. I think there are, events, outside of the country that are influencing this as well. I have a bias towards the Liberal Party, but I also have a bias towards this panel. And all of us said in the spring that Elizabeth May needed to be prepared for greater scrutiny. And she said this, and within an hour after it was picked up, the Green Party is putting out a statement kind of clarifying it. So it does start to raise some questions about how ready they are for prime time. Also, whether or not, what does the whip for a Green Party, Green Caucus actually do if they don't do this? So I think, again, it's one of those times where I think Elizabeth May, again, she's going to be very popular, but you got to be very thoughtful about what type of questions you're answering.
Okay, how vulnerable is May for NDP attack on this issue then?
Well, she is very much so. I mean, the NDP has been trying to say that Elizabeth May is willing to support Andrew Scheer, trying to cast her with that crowd. And for the Green Party, I mean, their slogan says it all. We're not left, not right, moving forward. Well, that's because they're trying to attract people from all sides. And that's where they fall in this kind of trap, which she fell in before. In 2006, when Elizabeth May ran in the by-election in London, she was caught in the abortion debate saying that she was personally pro-life, but that the party was pro-choice, and that she was not, however, in favor of the frivolous right of women to choose, or the right of women to choose frivolously. Something like that. It's very confusing, and that's where she gets entangled in this debate. Again, I mean, who knew that of all party leaders, the one to reopen the abortion debate for this election campaign would be Elizabeth May?
Crazy. Okay, Kate Harrison, last word to you.
I actually think the answer she gave was pretty solid. She's obviously a person of faith, but she said that she has no interest in reopening the debate, which is really not all that different from the Conservative Party position. I look forward to the Liberal and NDP attack ads against Elizabeth May on this issue. I don't think they're coming. I don't think they're coming with near the fervor that they came with at the Conservative Party. And the reality is that Canadians, to Greg Weston's point, Canadians don't want to be talking about this. I think the longer we spend bringing it up on panels like these and others, we're doing a disservice to Canadians what they actually just want to talk about, which is the economy and affordability.
Yeah, but do you see Scheer having any vulnerability to the fact that he did have social conservatives basically crown him the leader? Doesn't that give your opponents a window of opportunity to attack him and say, look, you owe them something?
Perhaps, but I think he's been pretty clear, and I sat through the party convention where we voted against reopening this debate. And the fact of the matter is the majority of party members don't want to see it happen either. So not only would he have to contend with a very upset electorate, he'd have to contend with a very upset party base. And I don't see why he would want to do that.
Okay, interesting discussion. Quickly, what day is the writ drop? Name it.
Thursday.
I think Thursday, too.
Sunday.
Okay, we're tied. I'll make fun of two of you next week this
Great.
time. Thank you all. We'll see you on Monday, next Monday.